playing with confidence. Serves it inside 50.
Inside 50, good hands.
Drilling it into centre half forward. That was end-to-end football at its best.
Back-to-back goals either side of quarter time.
They have done it, the Bulldogs!
I'd fight somebody for you. There ain't no wall I will run through. In your corner when they're ringing the bell. Come hell or high water. I'd fight somebody for you.
Yes, g'day WAFL fans, welcome along to a special edition of Around the WAFL. We're hitting the road for the second time in 2026, and as you can see, we are not in our usual confines of the Hen House in Osborne Park. For the first time since April, we're taking the show on the road and we're heading LEEDERVILLE way. As you can see, we are at Sullivan Logistics Stadium, a home of the Subiaco and East Perth football clubs, and we have got a big show coming your way from right here at Sullivan Logistics Stadium. It's a little bit overcast, a little bit cloudy, as you can see outside on this Monday evening at the time of this recording, but it will not faze us. Paul Persick with you, riding solo once again today, but giving you all the big news and scoops from another big weekend of WAFL football. Round 12 of the Sullivan Logistics WAFL Premiership season, and round 13 of the APCO WAFL W Premiership season, which saw plenty of thrillers in both competitions. And it does carry a lot of intrigue for the race for the finals. It is well and truly on in earnest, with 7 rounds to go in the WAFL and 6 rounds to go in the APCO WAFL W Premiership season. And of course, I'm on the Subiaco side here, just by the our fresco area here at Sullivan Logistics Stadium. A huge thanks to the Subiaco Football Club for allowing us to record this week's recap show right here at a beautiful ground. And no doubt about it, it is going to be a huge recap after a huge weekend in football. Our special guests for this week's recap show, we got Ash Gomes from South Fremantle and Perth's Sandover medalist Charlie Constable. He'll be joining us to look at their respective victories. Of course, Perth over the Bulldogs, and of course later on that day, South Fremantle winning another thriller, this time against the Demons after they played out a draw in round 3, and the Bulldogs with another match winner in Madison Hadley. Ash Gomes will talk about that later on in the show. We'll also have a look at the scores from the Colts over the weekend. We had a couple of Colts games this weekend, and there was a couple of shocks, in particular the game at Lathlane on the Saturday morning. Only 1 goal, 19 for one of the sides. Who was it? We'll tell you more about that across the show. We can't do this wonderful show without the great support of Front Row Screen Sport, Sullivan Logistics, proud supporters of the WAFL in 2026, District Promotions and Grants Car Stereo in Morley. So buckle yourselves in, because we have got a huge recap coming your way. We're going to start things off right off the bat with the Perth Football Club. They have made 2 big statements in the past 3 weeks. Victories over Claremont and South Fremantle has really enhanced their status as possible premiership contenders. But players like Charlie Constable are taking it 1 week at a time. And I spoke with him a little earlier in the day following that great win over South Fremantle at Mineral Resources Park on the weekend to talk about his side's performance and the run home that's ahead for the Perth Football Club. Here it is. Charlie Constable is with me here on Around the WAFL, and didn't the Demons make a statement on the weekend as we join you, Charlie? Thanks a lot for coming on the show. The Demons, if one statement wasn't enough, you've made 2 in your last 2 games, Claremont 2 weeks ago, and now the reigning premiers. It must be a great feeling.
Yeah, we sort of feel like early in the year we were a little bit inconsistent with our game, but certainly the last month we feel like we've made some real improvement. It's good reward for effort, getting a few good scalps on the board, but certainly plenty more to work on and get better at, and we're really excited for the challenge this week. What was said at half-time by Mark Stone, because it was 4 goals 5 to 2 goals 6, so your side had barely gotten out of first gear in that first half, and what was said in that half-time break that, got you into top gear? No, I think a lot of our game in the first half, like a lot of the KPIs that we track, were really positive. We just probably weren't finishing off our work in front of goal, and probably the last kick going inside 50. So we were certainly confident at half time if we could fix that up, we could score. And it sort of turned out in the third quarter, it all clicked, and we were able to kick a fair score in that quarter. Your midfield synergy was magnificent, especially after half-time, with Constable, yourself, Parfitt, 25 and 28 disposals respectively. Matty Taylor out at half-back. He ain't the silver fox for nothing. He just keeps racking them up. And Corey Byrne playing that close on-ball role with 25. That area was very important, wasn't it? Against a South Fremantle side that looked stacked in depth, but also had a couple of returning players that were well held. Yeah, we have nothing but respect for Souths, and particularly their midfield. We feel like there's no real weakness in there in terms of personnel. So we were certainly excited for the challenge as a group, and we're a pretty proud group. We feel like we're one of the best midfields in the competition, and we wanted to show that on the weekend. And after half time, I think we gelled really well, and it's always nice when you have Parth and Byrne and Wills and a few other boys to go through there beside you. You certainly feel really confident.
The running game in particular has been outstanding, and that's backed up by some efficiency up forward. I mean, you look at the scoring spread over the weekend, Clark with 3, Kluski, Johnson and Tilby each with 2. It's just that all-out attacking football that we saw after half-time, and the gelling process behind it is just getting better and better, isn't it, over there at Perth, in your match preparation, in your training, and conversely into games?
Yeah, we sort of feel like now we've been able to keep the same sort of mix down forward for a few weeks in a row, and it's amazing what some synergy does to a team. And certainly feel like we've got runners all over the ground. So when we defend really well and win the contest, we certainly have some pace on the outside that can score heavily. But we make no, we certainly pride ourselves on defence, and that's what wins this game. So that's what we'll continue to focus on.
Well, Charlie Dean, first season at Perth, former Collingwood player. He's taken to the competition like a duck to water. He really clamped down on the Bulldogs forwards, didn't he, with 10 great marks, ably backed up by Matthew Taylor. Dean's having a remarkable first year on the WAFL, isn't he?
Yeah, he certainly is. He's fit in really well with our group, and he's a real leader for us already. And I just think he'll keep getting better week in, week out, which is really exciting for us. And then Tails and Baxter and Oscar Hine-Baston feeding off him, really being damaging with the ball, is a great mix for us. So hopefully they all stay in, really strong form.
Business end of the season coming up real soon. Critical time for your side if you want to maintain your spot in the top 3, because it's very tight competition this year. East Perth, West Coast, East Fremantle and Subiaco in the next few weeks. All of them, like your side, contending for a spot in the 5. It's going to be a critical stretch, isn't it?
Yeah, it certainly is. We're really excited for it. We feel like the competition's really even throughout the board, and we know that the next month's going to be really challenging, but we're certainly excited for it and feel like if we play our best footy, we can beat all of those guys.
Yeah, it's going to be a big game against East Perth in particular on Saturday in the start of July, with conditions easing off from the rain that we're going to have throughout the week. That game against a side that has, lost a lot of depth through injury, but can still play some really good contested football. You'd anticipate a big test from a Royal side that are desperate to get back into the grand final again.
Yeah, absolutely. They've got some tremendous depth, and whilst they're missing a couple of their key players, I think given a bit more responsibility, a few of those boys that perhaps are role players previously can really stand up. And we're really wary about what they can do, and we're preparing for their very best version of themselves. So you don't play in a couple of grand finals for nothing, and we think they'll be at their best, and we're excited for the challenge.
And they could be preparing for another entrance of the new Perth, as it was summed up on the whiteboard at Revo Fitness Stadium. Charlie Constable, we always appreciate your time here on Around the WAFL. Great win on the weekend, and all the best for that big clash against the Royals on Saturday.
No worries, Paul. Thanks for having me, mate.
Always well spoken, the Sandover medalist Charlie Constable joining us here on Around the WAFL. Earlier in the day, chatting about a great win over there at Lathlane against the reigning premiers South Fremantle, who have gone a bit off the boil in recent weeks. We'll recap that game in detail and more here on Around the WAFL. We'll take a break, and when we come back, we'll recap all the Round 12 action, all the results and all the news from all the 5 games that took place, including 2 thrillers right here on this very ground at Sullivan Logistics Stadium. It's a special recap show. We're taking the show on the road for the second time this year, so don't go anywhere. More to come after this.
Take it from me, great things happen at the WAFL.
Valentine Roads and goals.
With free entry for kids, future stars on the ground, and a kick to kick at every break. The WAFL is where footy memories start and legends are made. Follow the WAFL on socials or get to a game.
Hey Siri, how to connect Bluetooth to Mac truck?
Sullivan 2, what's your position?
Just a midfielder, mate. On your left. Oh, come on, get out of the way.
Car Stereo Morley, proudly supplying and fitting quality car stereos for over 15 years, selling top name brands like Alpine, Focal, Rockford Fosgate. From a simple upgrade to complete custom systems, stop in and see Grant and the boys at 61 Russell Street, Morley, or visit us online at carstereo.com.au.
Thanks for joining us here on Around the WAFL. Great to have your company live from Sullivan Logistics Stadium. It's one of our special on the road shows in 2026, where we take Around the WAFL away from the confines of our studio at the Hen House in Osborne Park, where we usually record our shows. But we're right here at Sullivan Logistics Stadium on an overcast Monday evening, but the rain is staying away for the moment. At least we're undercover in the alfresco area here at Leederville, the home of the Subiaco Football Club and the East Perth Football Club. And I'm on the Subiaco side today, and it was a wonderful arrival not long after. So big thanks to, a lot long before we started this recording, I should say. A big thanks to Mia and the Subiaco folk for showing me around. A lot of great memorabilia and a lot of great memories at the Subiaco Football Club. They have success as their middle name, and while they've had lean years, it is good to see them back in the fight for the five after a great win on Saturday. We'll get to that in just a little bit. But I'll tell you what a weekend it was in football. Plenty of close encounters. May I say, one of the best rounds in the WAFL season thus far. And it started out here at Sullivan Logistics Stadium on Friday night. East Perth and the West Coast Eagles doing battle. And this was a real tight tussle, there's no mistake about that, with East Perth just holding on for a much-needed win. Take this. No Ethan Regan out for the season, no Stanley Wright for a while, no Hamish Brayshaw until the finals, no Christian Abadjuri until the finals, and they got the job done only by 5 points in the end, 10-5-65 to 8-12-60. And this was a much needed win for East Perth after a couple of poor performances, most notably against Peel Thunder the previous week. But East Perth, they struggled from the start, didn't they? 5 goals to 3 in the first quarter, and it was through the likes of Luca Grego in the back line, Finley McRae in midfield, who's having a wonderful season in the middle, Matt Flynn in the ruck. Why is he not being recalled for an AFL selection? I will never know. But the Eagles, they played their cards right for 3 quarters, didn't they? They used the ball very well in midfield. They had Cipriani getting a couple of goals. Malachi Champion, who of course was cleared after that incident with Swan District Seb Bright a couple of weeks ago. He played a very good first half. He kicked a goal and took some really good marks inside that forward 50. That aerial ability that Champion has got is going to be incredibly valuable for the West Coast Eagles later down the track, because despite the loss, they're still in contention for a spot in the 5. So there's still a long way to go for the Eagles to be written off this season. Luca Grego, as I said before, 27, but the real standout, one would say, was Oliver Franku, the former North Adelaide player. Ever since he got picked up by the West Coast Eagles in the mid-season draft from North Adelaide, he has been a real revelation. His midfield game, the way he gathers the football, and his pressure in the contest has been magnificent. East Perth, meanwhile, of course, they really struggled until the last quarter, where they really posed a big comeback. They kicked 2 goals, while West Coast kicked 6 behinds. I'll always go on by the opinion, had the Eagles kicked straight in that last quarter, they would have won the match, because West Coast had more of the football in the first 3 quarters, in fact, 330 to 293. But East Perth, under pressure, they rose to the challenge. They were terrific in that last quarter. Wilcox down the back line. He played one of his better games in quite a long time. Sturrock as well, down back with 17. Luke Foley with 20 for East Perth, the former Subiaco player. And Emilio Pizzolante kicking his first 2 goals in his WAFL career. Some passionate celebrations to boot. Weren't they magnificent? And really fired the team up. And that's a win that East Perth needed to just spark themselves up a little bit, because the pressure has been on them to get back to the grand final after losing the last 2, and especially without their co-captains Brayshaw and Abadjuri. They left the leadership task up to Scotty Jones in the ruck, and he lived up to it magnificently with 29 hit-outs to go with his 13 disposals. Liam Tedesco had an amazing night as well, 10 tackles. He got physical, same case with Oliver Franco, and he really threw himself at the contest and had great commitment, not just in the contest in the centre, but also in half-back as well. But valuable win for East Perth, but the Eagles, had they kicked straight, they would have won the match. But East Perth can count their lucky stars nonetheless, but a win they had to have, especially in the context of how this season has panned out. We go over to the Good Grocer Park for our next game, and this one was another close finish in the end. Claremont led by some 4 goals at three-quarter time and almost blew it, withstanding a remarkable comeback by East Fremantle, who lost Lennon Marlin due to injury and lost Harry Marsh before the game. So losing 2 very valuable players is a massive effort by East Fremantle. But in the end, the score shows Claremont winning by a straight goal, 10-11-71 to 10-5-65. Late goal from East Fremantle brought the game back their way. Claremont still had the lead. They were able to get it out of the centre. They scored a late behind. The siren went, and to Claremont and Ash Prescott's relief, it was a massive win for them, make no mistake about that. In the context of how their season has gone, because they have struggled. Mid-season slump, they lost to West Coast and Perth at home in recent weeks. And this is a win that has sort of got them off the canvas a little bit, because they needed a win of this calibre to really stake their claim as a top 2 side. And think about it, they lost Bailey Rogers before the game, so that was a huge blow for the Claremont Football Club, one of their number 1 midfielders, former Sandover medalist. So the experience they had out of the centre was gone, but they still had a lot of class through Ollie Eastland, who had 47 hit-outs in a good return to form after being well beaten by his opposition in the last 2 weeks. Eastland was ably well supported by Callan England, another 33 disposals. Sam Alvarez with 22. Ben Elliott outstanding again with another 20-plus possessions. And Declan Mountford, he's really been the enforcer down the back line. He shut out any opportunity from the likes of Liam Robinson to really capitalise on that loose ball. His tackling prowess was magnificent. Almost 90 tackles in Claremont's win there, which is often very telling. If you have almost up to 90 or 100 tackles, 9 times out of 10 you're going to win the match, and that's what Claremont did. But for East Fremantle, very admirable performance despite losing those 2 players, especially Marsh before the game. Luke Stranatica with 44 hit-outs, Jack Cleaver 26, just magnificent. Cameron Earley with 21, playing in that back line, a little bit in midfield as well, and he kicked a brilliant goal, and a big occasion it was for him as well. It was the Kai Feller Foundation game. Of course, he lost his brother a decade ago, did Cameron Earley to suicide, and they did a wonderful job, did the East Fremantle Football Club, in spreading awareness to mental health and throwing some great support behind a great foundation, and an emotional goal late in the game by Cam Eardley and paying tribute to his late great brother. It was a wonderful moment for the East Fremantle Football Club and for Cam Eardley himself. Three-quarter time, that message from Billy Monahan must have rung true, because they were 4 goals down and nearly snatched the game. Does that say something more about East Fremantle, or does that say something more about Claremont? One would suggest it would say something more about Claremont, because they dominated the first 3 quarters. There's no denying that. They got off to the hot start. They kept the momentum. But they stopped again. It's been these little slumps that Claremont have been having. I'd almost go as far as to say it's been un-Claremont-like this season, and I can imagine Ash Prescott will be putting the boys through a hard week, because they've got Peel Thunder next in a top-of-the-table clash at Lane Group Stadium, so you don't want to be having any of those slumps again if you're Ash Prescott and the Claremont Football Club. But they got a great win in the end. We mustn't forget Jaden Hunter too. What form he's been on since coming back from suspension. He has not been held goalless. As a matter of fact, in his last 2 games, he's kicked 11 goals, so it's been a rich vein of form for Jaden Hunter since suspension. Now, we go over from Good Grocer Park out to Mineral Resources Park over at Lathlane. And if you thought Perth's win against Claremont was impressive in round 10, their win against South Fremantle was just as impressive. 34-point margin it was, 12-7-79 to 6-9-45. This was a massive statement, and they've put the competition on notice, haven't they? And as we spoke about with Charlie Constable a little earlier before we recorded this portion of the show here, it's all about that self-belief and taking it 1 week at a time and getting those fundamentals right. And Perth certainly did just that. And the message after half-time, it caught me by surprise, because looking at their performance, seeing the game on the replay, on the 7+ replay, they looked a bit off in some areas. But if their KPIs, as Charlie Constable quoted, were successful, might have given them a little bit of leeway to have a big third quarter, 7-1 in that third quarter. That set them up for the victory, make no 2 bones about it. And it was that back line that held South Fremantle's forward line well and truly off their game. Charlie Dean in particular, massive. He had 10 great marks, most of them intercept when South Fremantle were rushing their kicks into their forward 50. And you look at Matthew Taylor, the experience complemented so well with the youth of Charlie Dean. They blended so well down the back line. And when you're looking at Taylor's figures, you look at 27 disposals, 6 marks. Charlie Dean, 22 disposals and 10 marks. That's 16 marks between them. Almost a third of the 75 marks that they took for the entire game. Constable, outstanding with 28, up forward and even scoring spread. Clark with 3 goals. Jack Kluski with a couple of goals as well. Kane Johnston also got 1. But it was just the way they played their team football. They teamed brilliantly for some great passages, did the Perth Football Club, and it left South Fremantle often second to the football in that second half. And they lost a bit of that desperate spark that they needed. Even with Matty Parker returning, it did not do South Fremantle the world of good. I mean, when you're looking at South Fremantle's numbers in the end, Lewis Racing with 23, Winder with 26, Bletchenden with 23, Florenka down on his usual best with 17. He had 10 tackles to go with it as well. But not a single, well, only one multiple goal kicker in the end, and that was Aaron Drage. But he usually plays down on half-back or on the wing, so they brought him up forward to try and give South Fremantle some more scoreboard pressure. But you look at their usual suspects up forward. Bolognese being out, Colborne, he did play, but he was still hindered by that wrist problem that he had. And so without the likes of Bolognese, Rusco and Strong, South Fremantle were well and truly exposed. Without those three, their forward line lacked depth, and Charlie Dean and Matthew Taylor made doubly sure of it, and a huge win it was for the Perth Football Club. One would certainly cement them as a premiership contender. They're in the top 3 and they've got a big run ahead of them, but it really instills the self-belief that they've got over there at Perth Football Club, and a job well done it was to them on Saturday. The reigning premiers, they've gone off the boil, and I say that again because after round 6 when they beat the West Coast Eagles, how many games they have won since, you may ask? Just the one, and that was against West Perth a couple of weeks ago. But other than that, no success heading into this mid-season point. So Craig White has got a lot of thinking to do, and so have the players if they're to arrest this slump, because they've got a resurgent Subiaco next down at Fremantle Oval. So it is a massive, massive task for South Fremantle to arrest this slump, because Perth, they are on the way. And so are the Lions down here at Sullivan Logistics Stadium. Not only they're getting themselves ready for training as we speak at the time of this recording, but they withstood some gutsy desperation by Swan Districts on Saturday, and in the end, the Lions were victorious by only 4 points, 9-6-60 to 8-8-56, and Subiaco, they got themselves back into the 5 as a result of this win. It was desperate, it was a lot of contested footy that ruled the contest in what was very unpredictable conditions, similar to what we're seeing here today on this ground. And really, Subiaco stood up to the task when it mattered. They got off to a good start, despite Bryce Watson getting the first goal of the match. They teamed brilliantly and played some very mature football. And Subiaco's forward line was always going to be one of concern, because you've still got Borchett and Sokol out of the side, but you've got a new weapon, Campbell Henderson. And he hadn't kicked a goal all year prior to him entering the field against Swan Districts, but he ended up kicking 3, and his second and third at critical times in the game, because Swan Districts, they're a better side than what their record suggests. They've got some great players, and they really took it up to the Lions on Saturday. Jarvis Pena, his first game back, that was a massive in for Swan Districts, and he really made his case known to be a permanent fixture in that side once again after missing 6 weeks due to injury. 23 disposals, provided great craft off the half-back line, spent a bit of time further up the ground in midfield, and he did a wonderful job. Jesse Turner, usual Jesse Turner best with 31, magnificent. Patrick Mullane was a scare for Subiaco. He left the ground after a heavy collision. So too did Caleb Ernst, the new ruckman for Swan Districts, the backup for Lucas Impey earlier on in the game, but he came back in the second half and was limited on his impact. Speaking of Impey, 47 hit-outs against Stephen Miller's 25. He really held his own, and Swan District's forward line still finding a way to sink in, especially with Lee Coleman often being limited in his impact. He only had the 1 disposal. The ball didn't go down to him a lot, and when the ball did go down to him, he was often double-teamed or even just out-positioned in those one-on-one contests, which is pretty much out of Coleman's usual character. And for Subiaco, their backline really stood up well. Gyro was magnificent. Jack Mayo again was brilliant. Liam and Will Hickmott, only 29 disposals between them, but that was because there was a lot of stoppages, a lot of contested footy that ruled the roost on this ground. And you talk about the likes of William Reedy, he largely was kept out of business by the Subiaco backline, and it showed how valued the Lions back 6 well and truly is. So a big win for Subiaco. Jared Schofield has got them going again. They are in the 5, and good on them. They have been absolutely magnificent. For Swan Districts, they shouldn't take anything away from that loss that could be a detriment. They played some really good football, just missed a lot of chances when going into that forward 50 in that last quarter. There was about 5 chances that they had in that last quarter, just not able to convert on the scoreboard. So that was maybe one that got away for Swan Districts. After the game, I spoke with Stefan Gyro following his great haul of 21 disposals and 6 tackles, and this is what he said after the match on Saturday.
Yeah, we've got some good players down there, so especially Galen played really well today, I thought, and yeah, Paddy Mullane's obviously pretty tough match up too, so I thought those boys went really well.
Stefan Gyro, measured perspective on that game. It was a hard grind, and of course the former South Australian and the former West Australian state player obviously made his case to be one of the featured stars for Subiaco in that game. Worked very hard at it. Then we go to the final game, and I'm sad to say this was the only not so close one of the action in round 12 on Saturday, but it was no real surprise in the end. Peel Thunder victorious by a mammoth 88 points, and it was an absolute walloping they handed West Perth. 17-20, 112 to 5-4, 34, and with 15 listed Dockers players, it was no real surprise in the end. But let's not take nothing away from the success that Peel Thunder have had. They've played some brilliant football all throughout the season, and their class really told right from the word go. From that first minute, the first quarter, it was all Peel Thunder. They used the ball brilliantly out of the centre. They dominated the clearances. Their inside 50s told 59 to 30 in the end, and West Perth just had no real answer. Scoreless in the first quarter, and especially when you have Moulton out of the side, who was done an ACL in that game against South Fremantle. Bevan with concussion. Keegan not back in the side, but largely limited on his impact. Keitel often relied upon to be that number 1 forward. He only managed 2 goals. It was going to be a long afternoon for West Perth, and so it proved, because Peel Thunder were on the ball right from the word go. Sharp, magnificent, maybe a Dockers call up in the future. Tregenza back to his best form with 3 goals, and the likes of Sherry and Hewitt all were magnificent in that win over West Perth. And just the synergy that Peel have got, not just through their Dockers players, but some of those locals and interstaters that have really grasped at the opportunity. Tar Drew in particular, he was magnificent, and just continues to show why he is one of the best in the competition. 28 disposals, 4 marks, and 5 inside 50s as well. But West Perth, looking at their numbers, 23 for Guadagnon, but the ball went down his way a lot, and that was in the back line. Johnson with 12, Alexandre with 13, Keitel, as I said, with 2 goals, but they just could not get anything going. There was no standout contributors in the game. Okay, they were up against it, against Peel Thunder, but just nothing really clicked for the Falcons, and that is sad to say, because they've got some good players out in the field, some good talent, but just not able to get it done, unfortunately. Bailey Banfield was one that we ought to look out for. 29 disposals, he was brilliant. And Jaron Carr, what a performance from him, 27. Just everything clicked for Peel Thunder, as it has in the last couple of weeks. Big wins over East and West Perth now, and they find themselves at the top of the ladder. And that's where we're going to go to right now. After round 12, the competition ladder looks like this. Peel Thunder, on percentage, they remain on top of the ladder, ahead of Claremont. Perth jump into 3rd, South Fremantle down to 4th, and Subiaco remain in the 5 after their win over Swan Districts. East Perth, they're outside the 5 on percentage, then comes East Fremantle, West Coast, Swan Districts, and West Perth at the bottom end of the ladder. After 12 rounds of competition, we have got 6 rounds still remaining. It is going to be 7 rounds rather still remaining, and it's going to be one hell of a fight for those spots in the 5. Player of the Year voting time, and this week I cast 1 vote for Jeremy Sharp of Peel Thunder. He continues to go from strength to strength. His form and his efficiency has improved. In particular, we talked a few weeks ago with Ethan Roth that Sharpie's racking up the disposals, but his efficiency is the only drawback. But when you're looking at his improvement in efficiency over the last few weeks, you can't go wrong with him. Magnificent. Oliver Franku from the West Coast in a losing side. He got the 2 votes in his performance over East Perth. Just magnificent. His work around the contest is improved, and no doubt some AFL games by the end of the season will be his reward for the way he's been able to work at the contest. 11 tackles and over 20 disposals. 3 votes from Subiaco, Jack Mayo. Now, Mayo's played a bit of a combined role in the ruck and up forward too, and no wonder he's been reaping the rewards. A couple of goals in that win over Swan Districts, just reward. Ollie Eastland gets the 4 votes from Claremont. Now, he is back to his best form after some tough hit-outs against the West Coast Eagles and Perth. This was the right time to get back into form and to prove why 1 is the best ruckman in the competition, and 2, he could be a real handy asset for Claremont come finals time. Ollie Eastland got the 4, but the top gun this week, In his first season, he's just getting better and better, and if anyone thinks that he's not the most adaptable defender in the competition, what the hell are you thinking? Charlie Dean from the Perth Football Club, he gets the 5 votes for this week. Just brilliant. He knew what his role was with an exposed South Fremantle forward line that lacked the depth that's there, the big three that is there, Bologna, Strom and Rusco. He exploited that to great extent along with Matthew Taylor, but Dean just did a lot more with it. He gets the 5 votes for this week. Where does that leave the leaderboard? The leaderboard after round 12 looks like this. Jack Cleaver, he didn't poll, but he's still in the lead, but he has 3 players breathing down his neck, all on 10 votes. That's Charlie Dean, Angus Scott and Bailey Rogers. Lockie Tandra and Jeremy Sharp from Peel in 5th and 6th respectively. Brendan Parfitt from Perth is in 7th. Oliver Franco jumps up to 8th from the West Coast Eagles, and Subiaco duo Jack Mayo and Will Hickmott each with 5 votes. So that is the Player of the Year votes for round 12. 7 rounds remaining. After the break, we'll have a bit of a touch of the Colts scores from the weekend. We had a big round of Colts football, and also, I'll tell you what, this was a great chat to have. Ash Gomes, South Fremantle champion, to chat with us following their great win over the Perth Football Club by only 2 points over the weekend in the WAFL W competition. More to come on Around the WAFL, coming to you from Sullivan Logistics Stadium. More after this.
Take it from me, great things happen at the WAFL.
Valentine rides and goals.
With free entry for kids, future stars on the ground, and a kick to kick at every break. The WAFL is where footy memories start and legends are made. Follow the WAFL on socials or get to a game.
Hey Siri, how to connect Bluetooth to Mac truck?
Sullivan 2, what's your position?
Just a midfielder, mate. On your left. Oh, come on, get out of the way.
Car Stereo Morley, proudly supplying and fitting quality car stereos for over 15 years, selling top name brands like Alpine, Focal, Rockford Fosgate. From a simple upgrade to complete custom systems, stop in and see Grant and the boys at 61 Russell Street, Morley, or visit us online at carstereo.com.au.
And it's good to be back here on Around the WAFL, and we're taking the show on the road this week, of course, our recap show. And as you can see, I'm bloody inside the bowels, if you will, of the Subiaco Football Club, and the history around this great football club is just magnificent, you know, with all the great history surrounding the players, premierships, and wonderful marquees that are around the Subiaco Football Club is absolutely amazing. You know, you can see there some amazing jumpers to commemorate the team of the century for Subiaco, and even great players from the likes of Neil William Taylor, Bill Monaghan, who's of course coach at East Fremantle, and also the likes of Rod Willett, who was a premiership player, Dwayne Lamb, and amongst many legends at the Subiaco Football Club. And of course, recently they celebrated their premiership reunions of 1986 and 2006, a wonderful occasion by the Subiaco Football Club to put on. Simply absolutely marvellous. And even Mick Malone, who was the first Subiaco League player to play Test cricket for Australia, is immortalised, if you will, in great Subiaco history. A job very well done, absolutely magnificent. And a huge thanks to the Subiaco Football Club for giving us the pleasure of recording tonight's today's recap show from a very great location. Just before we have our chat with Ash Gomes for you, of course, I chatted with Ash Gomes earlier in the day before this recording. A couple of Colts scores to look out for. Perth, second last on the ladder, defeated league leaders South Fremantle 10-8 to 1-19. Good heavens. 1 goal 19, that's not going to win you many games of football, that's for sure. Perth just magnificent under pressure, and that really is a relieving win at that, just to release the pressure of the Perth side, showing that they can beat anyone on any given day. East Fremantle, they had a narrow escape as well in a gutsy grind in the wet. They beat Claremont 5-9-39 to 4-12-36 down at Good Grocer Park, and that is certainly a blip on Claremont's radar in their premiership defence. And for East Fremantle, it gives them a bit of a chance to finish in the top two. And in the other games, West Perth beat Peel Thunder by 20 points down at HIF Health Insurance Oval. And then in the final match, Subiaco, they'll be very delighted, no doubt about that, 11-15-81 to 4-6-30. Big winners over Swan Districts at Sullivan Logistics Stadium here on this ground on Saturday. So that's 4 games. Where does that leave the ladder after 12 rounds of competition? We see South Fremantle still on top despite the defeat. Claremont was their first loss in 5 weeks, and they blew a big chance to go to top spot themselves. And East Fremantle, they're only 1 game behind. West Perth in 4th, and making up the 5, Subiaco on percentage, ahead of Peel Thunder, Swan Districts, Perth, and East Perth. So a very fascinating Colts competition, and no doubt the race for the 5 is well and truly on in earnest. WAFL W. Let's now go over to a star for the South Fremantle Football Club. Her name is Ash Gomes. Of course, we spoke to her earlier this year on location down at Fremantle Oval, and her season has been rather good for the South Fremantle Football Club, and they had a huge win, a big win by 2 points over Perth in what was a wet grind over there at Mineral Resources Park. I spoke with Ash Gomes earlier in the day before this recording, and here's what she had to say following that great win over the Demons, one that certainly builds a lot of character for South Fremantle heading into a critical stage of the season.
South Fremantle's champion Ash Gomes is with me to talk about their side's win, thrilling win at that, over Perth by just 2 points. Ash, great to have you on the show. After 2 straight thrillers, how's the heart rate?
Yeah, thanks for having me. Look, it's definitely finally come down, but yeah, it's been 2 thrillers, and thank God we've been able to get, 2 wins, and obviously that loss against Swans in the middle, but the 2 thrillers definitely good to get the dubs on the board.
It shows how much character your side has got, especially when you come under enormous pressure as one of the sides that are contending for a spot in the 4 along with Perth, West Perth and Subiaco, and it's really a key attribute as we head into the business end of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. Probably gets driven a lot from Pia. She's always really driven that we need to believe and be determined, hungry to get those wins. And definitely since 2023, Souths haven't been back in the finals. So, the girls are just so determined to get back there. And, it's just such a great group to be a part of as well.
And it's a group that's committed, isn't it? Especially when the pressure is on, business end of the season, the cause has got to have full commitment from the playing group. And it certainly had it from not just yourself with 22 touches. Talia Moeller in particular, she's finding herself in great form, and she's a tackling machine. 10 tackles in that win on Saturday. She's been very impressive this season.
Yeah, absolutely. Since TJ's come back, she's just given everything back to the club and really been putting her foot forward and, not only do the results show on field with her stats, but everything off field that she does as well. It's been amazing to get to know her this season, and honestly, she's just an even better human. So it's been great seeing her enjoy footy again.
The conditions were a bit of a handful as well. It had a bit of rain on Saturday night over there at Mineral Resources Park. Conditions made ball handling a little bit difficult, and the running aspect of the game, which both you and Perth are well known for, good run in the game. There wasn't a lot of that free flowing football, wasn't it? And the conditions made it very difficult.
Yeah, for sure. I think I know how Steph likes to play, being the coach of Perth. So it was sort of just surge football whenever you can, especially when you're going with the wind. I think just get it as far as possible and just try and convert where possible. But, those conditions are probably expected in a winter competition, but whenever it comes, it's always one of those things where you go, oh, damn it, why am I playing football? But definitely one of those games that hopefully we won't get too many more games with torrential downpours.
You expected a big challenge from Perth, who have been on the improve this year in their second year in the WAFL W competition under Steph Wadling, who are also contending for a spot in the 4. You played a draw against them in round 3, but this time you were able to get your own back. Do you think if you meet Perth in the finals, if you and Perth make the 4, do you expect the contest to be even harder because Perth have improved so much this year?
Absolutely. I think the whole of the Waffles improved this year, and I know how Steph coaches and the way that she'll be drilling them, but I'm just as confident that our program and our team will be able to get it done, whoever we verse in the finals. So, I think that round 3, when we did draw against them, it was pretty hard on everyone. And then this game, all we wanted to do was really have some redemption and get that win against Perth, because they did beat South late last year. So we just wanted to really prove ourselves, and I think we did that outstandingly.
And you've been in great form. And you've been in great form over the last month. You've won 3 out of your last 4 games. You've got the bye this weekend. Couldn't have come at a better time, because your last 4 games after the bye, 3 of them out of the 4 could be winnable, according to some. The only tough one would be that last round against Claremont on August the 2nd, where possibly you're playing for a spot in the 4. But you're obviously taking it week by week. You don't usually like to think too far ahead. We discussed on the on-location segment the previous earlier this year. You always like to take it one game at a time, and that's obviously the obvious approach that you and the other girls want to take.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the only way that you can look at the season. It's one game at a time, but it's always easy to look at, future games and how the ladder's looking, obviously, towards the back end of the season. But, I've been pretty strong on it. The girls just have to keep believing that we're making finals and believe it and manifest it enough that it will happen. And, some people say that there's 3 wins, potential 4, but, the way that the WAFLW is going these days, you just quite never know what's going to happen. So looking at it, the back end of the season, pretty confident that we'll get all 4.
It's going to be a tough stretch, isn't it? Because the competition is so close. You've got your top 2 there well clear, and anywhere from 3rd through to 7th could make the 4. Not only it raises the pressure on those teams like yourself as well, but it just adds to the excitement of the challenge, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been around for long enough now, and I don't think the competition's been as close as what it is at the moment. And, I think that just proves how good the WAFLW is becoming. And, there's been a couple of girls get picked up as replacement players and whatnot. And I think it's just proving that, the WAFLW is an established competition, and it's pretty exciting to see how close everything's getting towards the end of the season too.
You talked about players getting picked up as replacement players in the AFLW. One of your own was picked up, the 3rd one within a month to be snapped up by an AFLW club, Natasha Entwistle. Versatile and very reliable in the midfield. She's going to be an Eagle in 2026, replacing Michaela Weston, who's sidelined with injury. What an opportunity that is for Natasha to showcase her best skills in the AFLW competition.
Yeah, absolutely. I've known Pash since she was 14, 15 at East Fremantle, and it's weird. I've sort of watched her grown up and become the woman that she is today. And, she is only still 19, 20 years old. But, every time that she didn't hear her name get called, it just made her work harder. And she's put in mounds of effort that no one actually sees. You probably see just the name get called, her to eventually wear the yellow and blue, but no one actually sees the grit and determination that she had to get herself on a list. So for Tash, I'm just one proud big sister, really. She, I've definitely took her under my wing over the past couple of years, and just so happy to see her finally get her opportunity. It's so well deserved.
No, I will agree with you there. It's a great opportunity for Natasha to go up against Australia's best, and we can't wait to see how she goes at the West Coast Eagles. Great win on Saturday, Ash. Thanks so much for joining us. All the best for the bye, for the week off, before you head out to Mandurah to take on Peel Thunder on July 11 in round 15. Thanks for your time, Ash.
No worries, mate. Have a good one.
Superstar Ash Gomes from the South Fremantle Football Club joining us here on Around the Waffle, our special on-location edition of Around the Waffle, recapping all the great action. I'm going to take you to another location of Sullivan Logistics Stadium, another part of the home of the Subiaco Football Club. Right after this, it's our special Around the Waffle on-location recap show, special show that in selected parts of the season that we take on the road. It's all thanks to Grant's Car Stereo in Morley, also District Promotions, Front Row Screen Sport and Sullivan Logistics, your proud supporters of WAFL football in 2026. Don't go anywhere, more to come after this.
Take it from me, great things happen at the Waffle.
Valentine rides and goals.
With free entry for kids, future stars on the ground, and a kick to kick at every break. The Waffle is where footy memories start and legends are made. Follow the Waffle on socials or get to a game.
Hey Siri, how to connect Bluetooth to Mac truck?
Sullivan 2, what's your position?
Just a midfielder, mate.
On your left. Oh, come on, get out of the way.
Car Stereo Morley, proudly supplying and fitting quality car stereos for over 15 years, selling top name brands like Alpine, Focal, Rockford Fosgate. From a simple upgrade to complete custom systems, stop in and see Grant and the boys at 61 Russell Street, Morley, or visit us online at carstereo.com.au.
And you're back with us here on Around the Waffle, and as you can see, I've changed places again. It is like a game of sliding doors and trading places here on Around the Waffle, but I'm in the media centre of Sullivan Logistics Stadium, and as you can see behind me at this time, the Subiaco folks are getting themselves warmed up for training. They've got a big game ahead against the reigning premiers South Fremantle this week, but of course, they're off the back of a thrilling win against Swan Districts. This is our special on-location recap of Around the Waffle for this week, and of course, we're here at Sullivan Logistics Stadium taking the show on the road in 2026. Of course, the first time we did that was back in April. Denham Melrose alongside me from Eagles headquarters over at Lath Lane, buzzing with that big clash they had in round 5 against East Perth. But now it's all about the Waffle W in our last portion of the show, and we've got 4 great games to look back on. And what about this for a turn-up in the books? A week ago, we said that Subiaco were under a lot of pressure. They'd blown their chance to make the 5. But I think we're all eating humble pie because they inflicted Swan District's second loss of the season down at Steel Blue Oval by only 5 points. It was a crackerjack contest in the wet, 5-1-31 to 3-8-26, and it was a margin of only 5 points, as I said. And it was again the big 3 in the midfield that really stood out. Shepherd with 28, Petrevsky with 26, and Lisa Steen with 29. They were massive in that contest. They got first to the football. They showed their desperation throughout. And it's really what they needed to do against a high-quality Swan District side that have really been, the team to beat in 2026. And the way they were able to get it out of the centre into attack, considering they only had 20 inside 50s compared to 35 in favour of Swan Districts, it really is a testament to how Subiaco worked at the contest, especially down the back line. You talk about Dana Lee down back, she was terrific. Tonkin and Johnson all were terrific. And just the way their discipline got the better of them. Because Swan Districts had a few moments of ill-discipline in critical stages of the game, and Jason Burton would be disappointed with that performance. But having said that, they did have some positives. Lauren Quaife with 46 hit-out. She, again, proving to be the dominant force in the ruck. Jamie Henry with 28 and Taylor Edwards with 13. Below her best to some degree. Emma Nannett, Chloe Riley also well held. Bella Edgley had a tough outing as well. It's only a couple of games since she returned from a shoulder injury, and one would expect hopefully her to get into full gear in 1 or 2 weeks' time. Recoveries from shoulder injuries of that nature are not that easy at all. Jess Cox also played a very serviceable role with 19 disposals. But Subiaco, all of a sudden, 1 week, they were considered to be out of the 4. They're now back in contention for a spot on the 4. It's another indication of how drunk this season has been. But well done to Subiaco and Baker Denneman. They certainly have made possible believers out of many, including myself. But well done to Subiaco. As the old saying goes, desperate times call for desperate measures. Subiaco were very desperate in that game at Steel Blue Oval. Now we go to Revo Fitness Stadium. Oh boy, this one was another thriller, another grind in wet, trying conditions down here at Revo Fitness Stadium in the west. And by gee, East Fremantle, they led at every change, but did not lead at the final siren. Oh no, it was a 3-point win to the reigning premiers. And as we highlighted with Jamie Harkin last Thursday, Claremont, East Fremantle and one-sided games. They don't go hand in hand, as it showed. 4-8-32 to 4-5-29. Claremont winning by just 3 points. It was a crackerjack contest in the wet. And Harkin herself, man, she is a good one, no doubt about that. Just continues to play these great games and just continues to be the first one at the contest. Was just brilliant. A job very well done. Jamie Harkin, 32 disposals. Hayley Bullis, a new signing for Claremont, hadn't been on a WAFL W field in years. 13 disposals, very serviceable to a great extent when you're looking at the way she's been able to conduct herself in the lead up to this game. So a job well done. Valentini as well was magnificent. Webb was okay. Evie Edwards, very serviceable. Matilda Husband in the ruck also was very good. And considering they were without 3 players, it was suggested that, they'd find themselves a little bit vulnerable considering that they had lost to East Fremantle in their previous meeting, but no such worries in the end for Claremont. Their depth still is second to none, there's no doubt about that. Sergeant Wilson, who missed last week, she was back in fine form with 10 tackles to go with her 20 disposals. But East Fremantle, they shouldn't be too disheartened with that performance. They're still in the 4. They know that they can take it to the likes of Claremont. They expected it to be a tough encounter, make no bones about it. But the fact that they pushed Claremont to within a kick, okay, they surrendered the lead late in the game, but the fact that they were able to take Claremont at their best, even without a number of players, shows that East Fremantle can still be a fighting force for the 4. And that is a testament to them as a side. Keeley outstanding with 32 and 18 disposals. Sarah Wielstra with 19. Jay Flynn, who's been the leading ball getter at East Fremantle this year with 26 touches to go with 13 tackles. She really applied the pressure in that contest, and dare I say, it was one that was maybe worthy of some Dara Kerr medal votes and a losing side, mind you. And just the way she was able to apply herself at the contest was brilliant. 92 tackles, in fact, to 81. The fact you have 90 tackles and lose the game is a bit heartbreaking, isn't it? There's no doubt about that, but it shows that East Fremantle were willing to pile on the pressure against a side like Claremont in the crisis, and they were able to contest every issue. Similar to Claremont able to get the 4 points on that occasion. So a job very well done in the end. For the reigning premiers, Jack Schwartz, dare I say, the heart rate was racing in that last quarter, but he'll be breathing a sigh of relief too, that's for sure. Third game of the weekend. As if we hadn't had enough close ones. We had another in the wet at Mineral Resources Park, and another late game hero for South Fremantle. This time to sink Perth hearts. The margin, 2 points, 3-6 to 3-4. Madison Haley, with mere minutes remaining, was able to kick a late goal to win the game for South Fremantle. It's their second close result this year against the Demons, having played out a draw back in round 3. But how good was this game? Okay, there was only 6 goals between them, but you can't look at it at the scoreboard in isolation. You've got to look at it how the contest was played. In the wet, driving rain, difficult conditions at ground level, and they played their hearts out. Both teams, make no mistake about it. The girls played their hearts out, and they had stand out to plenty. Talia Mulder, since coming back into the South Fremantle side, has been brilliant, no doubt about that, averaging almost over 30 disposals. Madison Evans with 20. Ash Gomes, who we spoke to a little earlier, has 22. She had 4 good marks as well. But just the way they were able to generate that forward line penetration for much of that game, not getting the result on the scoreboard, however, can be a bit frustrating, but also can be very rewarding because South Fremantle have got such wonderful depth. Perth, however, shouldn't be too disheartened with that loss. They knew that they were going to be up against it, against a strong South Fremantle side who were going to be hungry for that redemption, hungry for that victory, knowing what happened last year as well when they were Perth's first victims in WAFL W football. Amy Tringdale in particular, 26. Isabella Shannon with 25. Holly Britton with 28. All were gutsy, all were valiant. Molly Warren had only 13 hitouts, but she was well beaten in the ruck by Kate Newton and her fellow ruck in Charlie Vandenberg, who all really took it to Molly Warren in that ferocious contest. But in the end, South Fremantle, they are still alive in that fight for the 4. That win certainly was vital for Pia Folletti and her team, and it was one that's well deserved, a gutsy fight. But Perth lost no admirers. They knew that they were going to be up against it, and they put in a great fight. The only not so close one, like the men's competition on Saturday, or rather Sunday night in this case, was West Perth and Peel Thunder, the final game of the weekend, and in the end it was a rather comfortable 14-point victory for the Falcons, 4-9-33 to 2-7-19. West Perth coming off the bye, and a couple of dramatic close losses needed a win of this nature. They controlled the contest really right from the word go. They held Peel goals for 3 quarters, and they had their usual standouts firing. Roper with 28 disposals was just magnificent. A job well done to her. She's continuing to maybe be a bolter for the Daraku medal. She's staking her claim maybe. She could get a couple of sneaky votes late in the season, maybe poll on the top 3. Hannah Power with 22, Arabella Nelson with 20, Kayla Vanden Heaver with 21. It was the usual suspects at 5. They did what they needed to do in order to really put more pressure on that final 4. And the goals, well, they came from Zoe Huggett, who has been in fine form, having a much better season this year at West Perth than her last season at South Fremantle. She's playing with a lot more confidence and a lot more freedom, and the spaces of HIF Health Insurance Oval. It's a very big ground. Let's not make two bones about it. It's a big ground at Joondalup, and they play the spaces very, very well indeed. Peel Thunder, however, they had a respectable last quarter, but you've got to string 4 good quarters of football together if you want to take on the best in the competition. And, they had a good last quarter. Wrigley was sensational as always. Zaid Wilson with 17 hitouts. Georgia Tate, quiet by her standards, you would say. They just need to develop further the process of gelling as a complete side and playing for 4 quarters. But they showed good fight in the end. Let's not discredit that. Coaching staff would be rather pleased with that effort in the end, and especially with Ebony Bilsich playing good support for Chloe Wrigley to go with her 30-plus disposals. But they just lack that class and proficiency in the midfield and in attack as well. Goals apiece. Well, the only 2 goals were kicked by Kate Bartlett in that game, but they just need that synergy. Just more synergy, more time to develop, and they will be a continual threat for a possible spot on the 4. Maybe in 1 or 2 years to come. They've got good potential, Peel Thunder, but West Perth, they just had a little bit more to play for in the end, and it was a great victory, a classy victory too, for the West Perth Football Club. Where does that leave the ladder after 13 rounds of competition? Well, here it is. Swan Districts, they still hold top spot despite their defeat on the weekend. Claremont in second, and they could have a big chance to start up top spot next week, if possible. The 2 Fremantle teams, they make up the 4. West Perth just outside it in 5th. Perth in 6th. And Subiaco, they're still in contention now in 6th place, and then East Perth and Peel Thunder making up the bottom half of the ladder. When you think about it, 3rd through to 7th have only 2 wins between them. Creates a lot of intrigue in the competition, make no bones about it. Now for the Player of the Year votes. Now obviously Rothy's not here. He'll be back next week. Just had a few changes in the scheduling, which happens, of course. He polled these votes for round 13 in the Player of the Year. Madison Hadley from South Fremantle got 1 vote. Jay Flynn from East Fremantle got 2. Jamie Harkin from Claremont got 3. Talia Mulder got 4 from South Fremantle, and Rothy voted as the top gunner for the first time this year. Last year's Around the Waffle Player of the Year, Krista Petrevsky. That was a performance that she was dying to have for a long time this season, and she made it count. And it was a vital performance at that as well, a key role player in that midfield against Swan District. So where does that leave the leaderboard after round 13? Well, Jamie Henry's still on the lead. She may not be caught after the next 2 weeks, but we'll have to wait and see. She failed to poll though. She's still on 36 votes. Paige Shepherd on 15, Juliet Kelly and Jamie Harkin on 14 and 12 respectively. And then on 8 votes, Talia Mulder, Isabella Shannon and Noel McNaughton. Christopher Petrevsky into the top 10 on 7. Sabrina McKinnon also on 7, and Ruby Sargent-Wilson on 6 votes. That wraps it up for our special on-location edition of Around the Waffle. A huge thanks to the Subiaco Football Club for having us, the Around the Waffle team, putting it all together, recording this show here at Sullivan Logistics Stadium, of course. This venue will play host to another exciting weekend of Waffle football. And don't forget, Thursday night, we've got a massive preview show coming your way. It's a huge weekend of Waffle and WAFLW football, so you do not want to miss out the tips, the news and the insight heading into a massive weekend of Waffle football. It's all thanks to Bruns Car Stereo, Sullivan Logistics, Front Row Screen Sport and District Promotions. I'm hitting the road back to the studio on Thursday. I hope to see you there as well. Bye for now.